He showed up in my kitchen like a ghost I had accidentally summoned. One moment I was whisking eggs. The next, the man I had spent years trying to forget was leaning against my counter. His presence as heavy as thunder before a storm. "Lucas," he said. My name caught in his throat as if he was tasting it for the first time. It had been nearly 4 years since I last saw him. 4 years since I sat in his literature class, pretending not to notice the way his voice crawled under my skin. The way his gaze lingered a second too long on mine when he thought no one was paying attention. Back then, I was barely 18, reckless and aching for attention. He was 36, brilliant, careful, everything a boy like me should have never tried to touch. And yet, here he was, Mr. Hayes, my old teacher, standing in my kitchen as if time had folded in on itself, collapsing the distance we had once sworn to keep. I could smell the faint cologne he always wore, something woodsy and subtle, the kind that clung to him like it belonged to his skin. I hated that I remembered it so vividly. "You shouldn't be here," I said, though my voice betrayed me, softer than it should have been. His lips curved into something like a smile, but with all the sadness of a man who had been carrying too much for too long. "And yet, I am." The silence that followed was unbearable. My hands tightened around the bowl in front of me, my knuckles white, as if cracking an egg too hard could shatter the tension between us. I wanted to ask him why now. Why, after all these years, he had found me again. Why he looked like hell, eyes rimmed red, jaw set tight, as if he'd fought demons all the way here. But instead, I said the only thing that came to mind. "I thought you moved away." "I did," he admitted, his gaze finally breaking from mine. He looked at the counter, the floor, anywhere but me. "But you don't forget the places or the people who matter." My chest clenched. He wasn't supposed to say things like that. Not anymore. Not after everything. When I was 18, it had been nothing but glances, fragments of words, a brush of fingers when he handed me back my essays. Nothing ever crossed the line. Not really. But we both knew what lived there, in the silence between us. Something dangerous. Something forbidden. And now, at 22, standing face to face with him again, I could feel that same fire crackling to life, like it had just been waiting beneath the ashes for a breath of air. "You should leave," I whispered, but I didn't move. He stepped closer instead. Just one step, but it was enough to make my heart slam against my ribs. "Lucas, I didn't come here to hurt you," he said quietly. "I came because I can't carry this anymore. Not alone." My laugh came out sharp, brittle. "What? The guilt? Or the fact that you wanted me when you weren't supposed to?" The words sliced the air between us, cruel and bare. His jaw tightened, but he didn't flinch. He took another step closer. Now he was right in front of me, his warmth bleeding into mine, his eyes a storm I had drowned in once before. "I wanted you then," he said, each word like a confession dragged from the depths. "And God help me, I still do." The bowl slipped from my hands and clattered onto the counter. My breath caught, my throat burning. I wanted to scream at him, push him away, demand why he thought he could just walk back into my life and tear open wounds I had spent years stitching closed. But instead, I whispered the truth I had never admitted to anyone. "I wanted you too." And just like that, the air shifted. He reached for my hand, tentative, like he was afraid I might disappear if he touched me too hard. His fingers brushed mine, rough and warm, and I felt the ground tilt beneath me. For a moment, it was just us again. The boy who loved too deeply and the man who tried too hard to resist. And the kitchen, with its half-beaten eggs and ticking clock, became the place where secrets finally stopped being secrets. The kitchen felt too small for the two of us. The hum of the refrigerator, the faint ticking of the old clock above the stove. The smell of butter melting in a pan I had forgotten to turn off, all of it blurred into the background. What mattered was him. His presence filling every corner of the room, pressing against my chest like a weight I both longed for and feared. He didn't let go of my hand. His thumb brushed across my knuckles. A slow, hesitant stroke that said more than words ever could. I should have pulled away. I should have done the right thing, the safe thing. But instead, I let him hold me. "Lucas," he murmured, his voice so low I almost didn't catch it. "Do you ever think about those days?" I laughed, but it came out uneven, breaking halfway through. "Every damn day. And I hated myself for it." His eyes softened, though guilt still swam in their depths. "You weren't alone in that." Something inside me twisted. For years I had wondered if I had imagined it, all the glances, the silences, the way his hands lingered on my essays as though the paper were a bridge between us. To hear him confirm it now felt like both vindication and punishment. "Then why?" I asked, my voice cracking. "Why didn't you say anything back then?" "Because you were 18, he said immediately, his tone firm, resolute, but trembling at the edges. "Because I was your teacher. Because I told myself I was supposed to protect you. Not," he broke off, biting down on the rest. "Not want me." I finished for him, bitterness coating my tongue. He closed his eyes like the words had cut him open. When he looked at me again, there was no defense left. No careful wall of professionalism. Just raw honesty. "I wanted you in ways I shouldn't have," he admitted. "And I hated myself for it. Still do." I should have felt relief, maybe even satisfaction. But instead, a strange ache spread through me. I remembered the nights I lay awake in my dorm room, replaying every look he gave me, every sentence he spoke in class, dissecting them like holy scripture. And I remembered the sting of graduation day, when he shook my hand like I was just another student, and then let me walk away. I waited. I whispered, my throat burning. I waited for you to stop me, to tell me that maybe, just maybe, I wasn't crazy for feeling what I felt. But you didn't. His grip on my hand tightened, desperate now. Because if I had, I wouldn't have been able to let you go. And it wouldn't have been fair to you. Fair. My voice rose, sharp, angry. Do you think it was fair to let me think I made it all up? That I was just some stupid kid with a crush, while you got to keep your dignity and your perfect life? The silence stretched again, heavier this time. His shoulders slumped, his eyes falling to the floor. My life was never perfect, he said finally. You don't know how many nights I drove home from work and pulled over because I couldn't breathe. Because I wanted so badly to turn back, to tell you everything I wasn't allowed to say. I was terrified of ruining you, Lucas. Terrified of ruining us both. The anger bled out of me, replaced by something softer, something I didn't want to name, because it was too dangerous, too real. You already ruined me, I said quietly, and I don't even know if I want to be fixed. His hand slipped from mine then, only to rise and cup my face instead. His palm was rough, calloused from years of chalk and paper, yet gentle as it cradled my jaw. My breath caught as he leaned closer, so close I could see the flecks of gray in his hazel eyes, the faint scar near his temple I had never noticed before. Tell me to leave, he whispered. Say the word, and I'll walk out that door. But if you don't, his thumb brushed against my cheekbone, and I shivered. Then I can't keep pretending anymore. I should have said it. I should have told him to leave, to end this before it started again. But my lips refused to form the words. Instead, I tilted my face into his hand, closing my eyes like a sinner bowing to confession. When his lips met mine, It wasn't fireworks or explosions. It was something far quieter. More devastating, a dam breaking after years of pressure. A flood I could no longer hold back. The kiss was tentative at first. Hesitant. Almost fragile. But the moment I responded, the moment my mouth opened to him, it deepened, grew hungrier. All the years of restraint unraveling in an instant. I clutched his shirt, pulling him closer, tasting the desperation on his tongue. His hands slid into my hair, anchoring me like he was afraid I might slip away. The world outside ceased to exist. There was only him, only us, only the unbearable truth that we had both tried so hard to deny. When we finally broke apart, gasping, his forehead rested against mine. "This is madness," he breathed, though his hands didn't let me go. "Then let's be mad," I whispered back. He laughed, a broken sound, half joy and half despair. And then he kissed me again. We didn't make it to the bedroom. The kitchen counter became the place where years of unspoken longing spilled in to touch his hands mapping the lines of my back. My fingers clutching at his shoulders as if afraid he might vanish. But it wasn't just lust. Beneath the urgency was tenderness, a reverence that made my chest ache. Every brush of his lips against my skin, every shuddering breath between us carried the weight of everything we had lost and everything we still wanted. It wasn't until the oven timer went off, loud and jarring, that reality crept back in. Pulled away, laughing breathlessly. He looked at me, flushed and disheveled. And for a moment, he seemed almost young again. "Guess I ruined dinner," I said. He smiled, the first real smile I had seen on him all night. "We'll order takeout." We sat at the kitchen table afterward, a box of greasy pizza between us, as though we were just two normal men sharing a meal. But the silence was thick with questions, with the shadow of what came next. Finally, I broke it. "Why now?" He froze, a slice halfway to his mouth. Then he set it down, his eyes darkening. "Because I heard you moved back," he said softly. "Because I couldn't stand the thought of being in the same city and not seeing you. And because I've spent 4 years trying to convince myself that what I felt for you was wrong. But it never went away. It only got stronger." My throat tightened. "So what happens now?" He leaned back, running a hand through his hair. "I don't know. I shouldn't even be here. But I couldn't stay away." I studied him, the lines etched deeper into his face since I last saw him, the exhaustion in his eyes, but also the warmth that was still there, the warmth that had drawn me in from the start. "Maybe we figure it out together," I said. His gaze locked on mine, and something like hope flickered in his eyes. For the first time that night, I allowed myself to believe that maybe, just maybe, this wasn't the end of something impossible, but the beginning of something real. That night, after he left, I lay awake in bed, staring at the ceiling. My lips still tingled from his kisses. My skin still burned with his touch. But more than that, my heart felt both heavier and lighter than it had in years. I didn't know where this would lead us. Maybe to heartbreak. Maybe to something worse. But for the first time, I wasn't afraid of wanting him. For the first time, I let myself hope. The morning after, sunlight poured through my blinds like an interrogation lamp. I hadn't slept more than an hour, not because I didn't want to, but because every time I closed my eyes, I saw him, his face, his hands, the way he had said my name like it was both a sin and a prayer. I dragged myself out of bed, still tasting him on my lips, still feeling the echo of his presence in the air. My apartment smelled faintly of pizza and coffee grounds, reminders of a night that had split my life into before and after. I told myself it was a one-time thing, a mistake born from years of repression and longing. But when I looked in the mirror, my reflection betrayed me. I looked alive in a way I hadn't in years. My eyes brighter, my chest lighter, like a part of me had been waiting for this all along. I didn't hear from him for 3 days. 3 days of silence. 3 days of overthinking, of replaying every moment, every kiss, every word, until I drove myself insane. I checked my phone constantly, cursed at myself for caring so much, then stared at the empty screen anyway. On the 4th day, I found him sitting on the steps outside my apartment building. He looked tired, more tired than I remembered. His hair was messy, his shirt wrinkled, like he hadn't slept either. But the moment his eyes found mine, everything else fell away. "Lucas," he said, standing as if the simple act of saying my name gave him strength. I wanted to be angry. I wanted to tell him he had no right to disappear and then show up like nothing happened. But the truth was, I had been waiting for him, and we both knew it. "You can't keep doing this," I said instead, my voice shaking. "Showing up, leaving, coming back. I'm not a kid anymore. I can't." My throat tightened. "I can't survive you breaking me again." His expression crumpled, raw and unguarded. "I'm not here to break you. I'm here because I can't stay away." The words hit me harder than I expected. I turned away, unable to look at him, because if I did, I would give in. "I shouldn't even be here," he continued, stepping closer. "But every day I wake up and think about you. Every damn day. I've tried to move on. I've tried to bury it. But it's you, Lucas. It's always been you." Something inside me snapped. All the anger, the longing, the years of silence boiled over. I spun back to face him, my chest heaving. "Then stop running," I said. "Stop hiding behind excuses and guilt and whatever else you've been carrying. If you want me, then want me. But don't keep dangling yourself in front of me like a half-kept promise." The air between us crackled. For a long moment, he just stared at me, his jaw tight, his hands trembling. And then, suddenly, he closed the distance, pulling me into his arms like he had been starving for it. I let myself sink into him, my face buried against his chest, his heartbeat thundering in my ear. For the first time in years, I felt safe. But safety, I knew, was an illusion. It didn't take long for the complications to start. We tried to keep things quiet, to steal moments when no one was looking. Coffee shops on the edge of town, late-night drives to nowhere, weekends spent in the safety of my apartment. But secrets have a way of clawing to the surface, and ours was no exception. It started with a phone call. I was at work, stocking shelves at the small bookstore where I had picked up hours, when my phone buzzed. His name lit up the screen, Daniel Hayes. I stepped outside to answer, heart already racing. "Hey, Lucas." His voice was tight, hurried. "We need to talk." The bottom dropped out of my stomach. What happened? There was a pause, long enough to make me fear the worst. "Someone saw us," he said finally. My blood went cold. "What do you mean? Someone saw us?" "The other night. At the diner. I don't know who." But he broke off, his breath unsteady. "I can't risk this getting out." Panic clawed at my chest. I knew the stakes were high, but I hadn't let myself think about it too much. He wasn't my teacher anymore. We were two adults, free to make our choices. But the past had a way of shadowing the present. And I knew what people would say if they found out. "They'll think it started back then," I whispered. He didn't answer, but the silence was enough. "Daniel," my voice cracked. "What are we going to do?" "I don't know," he admitted. "But I can't lose my job. And I can't lose you either." Something hot and bitter surged through me. "So what? We just keep hiding forever? Pretend like we don't exist. No. His tone was firm now, resolute. We'll figure it out. I'll figure it out. But I need you to trust me. Trust. The word tasted strange on my tongue. Heavy with history. But against all reason. I wanted to give it to him. Okay. I said softly. I trust you. But trust was easier said than lived. Every time I walked through town, I wondered if people knew. If they looked at me differently. If they whispered when I wasn't listening. And every time he came over, he checked the windows twice, made sure the blinds were drawn, kissed me like he was both terrified and desperate. The secrecy ate at me, gnawed at the edges of what we had. I wanted to shout it from rooftops, to hold his hand in public, to live without fear. But I knew it wasn't that simple. Not for him. Not for us. One night, lying tangled in sheets, I whispered the question that had been haunting me. Do you ever wish you had just told me back then? He was quiet for a long time, staring at the ceiling. Finally, he answered. Every day. But I also know it would have ruined you. And I couldn't live with that. I turned to look at him, at the man who had carried this weight for so long. His face was lined with exhaustion, but also something softer, something that belonged only to me. You didn't ruin me, I said. You made me. His eyes flickered with emotion, and he reached for me, pulling me close. God, Lucas, I don't deserve you. Maybe not, I whispered against his skin. But you have me anyway. The storm broke 2 weeks later. A letter, anonymous, left in his faculty mailbox. I wasn't supposed to see it, but he brought it to me, his hands shaking as he unfolded the paper. The words were short, sharp, and cruel. I know about you and him. Do the right thing before someone else makes it public. The room tilted. My heart slammed against my ribs. They're bluffing, I said quickly, though my voice betrayed me. It doesn't mean they'll actually. Lucas. His voice was rough, ragged. This could destroy everything. I grabbed his hands, forcing him to look at me. Then let it destroy everything but us. His eyes burned into mine, torn between fear and something fiercer. You don't understand. I've worked my whole life to build this. My career, my reputation. And what about me? The words ripped out of me before I could stop them. What about us? Am I supposed to be your dirty little secret forever while you protect your image? The silence that followed was suffocating. Finally, he whispered, I don't want to lose you. Then don't, I said, my voice trembling. Choose me. He pulled me into his arms then, his body shaking against mine. And in that moment, I knew the choice would not be easy, but it was coming. The world was closing in. And soon, we would have to decide if our love was strong enough to survive the weight of its truth. The letter didn't just sit quietly in Daniel's drawer. It lived there like a loaded gun, heavy and waiting. For days, we danced around it, pretending it wasn't real. We cooked dinner, kissed like the world outside didn't exist, fell asleep tangled together in the safety of my bed. But even then, in the quiet moments, I could feel it like a shadow in the corner of the room, watching us, reminding us that we weren't untouchable. The first crack came at the grocery store. We were stupid that day, careless. He brushed my hand in the cereal aisle. Just a fleeting touch, but enough. A woman I vaguely recognized from the neighborhood was watching, her eyes narrowing, her lips curling into something ugly before she turned away. Did you see her? I whispered once she was gone. Yes, he said tightly, his jaw set. Neither of us spoke the rest of the trip. That night, he sat at the edge of my bed, His hands clenched together. It's starting, he muttered. What is? I asked, even though I already knew. The whispers. The looks. It's only a matter of time before he broke off, running a hand over his face. Before it all comes out. I swallowed hard, my chest aching. So what do we do? He turned to me then, his eyes filled with a storm I didn't know how to calm. We have two choices. We bury this deeper, hide it better, or we stop. The words hit me like a slap. Stop. Yes. His voice cracked. If we end it now, before it gets worse, maybe it'll blow over. Maybe no one will. No. The word tore out of me, sharper than I meant. You don't get to show up after 4 years. Tell me you still want me, and then just decide it's too messy to keep going. I'm not your mistake to erase. He flinched like I had struck him. For a long moment, silence hung between us, thick and choking. Lucas, he whispered finally, his voice raw. You have no idea how much I want to choose you, but this could ruin us both. I stepped closer, gripping his face in my hands, forcing him to look at me. Maybe it will. Maybe it won't. But I'd rather be ruined with you than safe without you. His eyes burned with unshed tears, and for the first time, I saw the man beneath all the restraint, the man who had been carrying this love like a curse. He pulled me into his arms then, holding me so tightly I could hardly breathe. And in that moment, I knew, no matter what came next, we were already in too deep to let go. The gossip spread faster than we expected. It started in hushed conversations in town, then crept into the faculty lounge at the university where he taught. Students whispered when he passed, their eyes sharp and curious. I caught them staring at me, too, when I walked across campus or through the bookstore. By the end of the week, Daniel was called into the dean's office. He told me about it afterward, his face pale, his hands trembling. They asked if it was true, he said, pacing the length of my kitchen. If I was involved with a former student. And what did you say? My heart thudded painfully against my ribs. I told them no. He admitted, shame flickering across his face. I told them it was just gossip. The word stung, sharper than I expected. So I'm what? Your dirty little secret again. Lucas, he reached for me, but I stepped back. No. My voice cracked. I get it. You're scared. But don't you dare lie to me and say it doesn't matter. Because it does. It matters to me. He stopped then, his hands falling to his sides, his expression crumpling. Of course it matters. You matter more than anything. But if they find proof, if they decide this is true, he dragged in a shaky breath. I could lose everything. And what about me? I demanded, my throat burning. Do you think this doesn't cost me anything? Every time someone stares, every time someone whispers, I feel it too. But at least I'm not pretending I don't care. His silence was answer enough. That night, he didn't stay. He kissed me once, quick and desperate, and then he left, the sound of his footsteps echoing down the hallway like a verdict. I lay awake until dawn, the bed cold beside me, wondering if love was enough to survive a world determined to tear it apart. Days turned into weeks. We tried to hold on, but the pressure mounted. The anonymous notes didn't stop. They multiplied, slipped under his office door, taped to my apartment building, even tucked into the windshield wiper of my car. Everyone knows. You can't hide forever. Disgusting. Each one felt like a blade. One evening, I found him sitting in his car outside my building, the pile of notes scattered across his lap. His face was hollow, his eyes red. I can't keep doing this, he said, his voice breaking. My stomach dropped. You're ending it. He shook his head. No. I'm ending the hiding. I stared at him, not understanding. What? I'm tired of living like this, he said, his voice steadier now, though his hands still shook. If it costs me my job, my reputation, everything, so be it. But I won't lose you. Not again. Tears blurred my vision, and I reached for him, my hands gripping his. Are you sure? Yes. His eyes met mine, fierce and unyielding. I love you, Lucas. I've loved you since the moment you walked into my classroom. And I'm done pretending otherwise. The confession broke something open inside me, something I had been holding back for too long. I leaned forward and kissed him, right there in the car, not caring who might see. For the first time, it didn't feel like a secret. It felt like freedom. The fallout came fast. The whispers turned to accusations. The dean demanded a formal investigation. The local paper ran a piece that didn't name names but made the implication clear. But through it all, we stood together, hand in hand. We walked into the university's disciplinary hearing. Eyes followed us, some sharp with judgment, others soft with pity. But we didn't let go. When they asked if it was true, Daniel didn't deny it this time. Yes, he said, his voice steady, clear. We are together. But it began after he graduated. After he was no longer my student. The room buzzed with murmurs. But I squeezed his hand, grounding him, grounding us. The panel debated, whispered among themselves, scribbled notes. Hours later, they returned with their verdict. Suspension, not termination. The weight lifted, though not completely. His career was bruised, his reputation scarred. But he hadn't lost everything. And more importantly, neither had we. That night, we sat on my balcony, the city lights flickering below, a bottle of cheap wine between us. We survived, I said softly, leaning against him. For now, he murmured, his arm wrapped around me. But I don't care about the rest. As long as I have you, I can face anything. I looked at him then, at the man who had once been my teacher, my impossible dream, my secret heartbreak. And now, finally, he was mine. Then let's stop surviving. I whispered. Let's start living. He smiled, the kind of smile that reached all the way to his eyes, and pulled me into a kiss that tasted like promise. And for the first time in years, I believed in forever. The night before graduation felt nothing like the way Lucas had once imagined it. He thought it would be wild and loud, a celebration fueled by beers and bonfires, where he would be just another boy laughing among the crowd. Instead, he was sitting on the back steps of the kitchen, shoulders brushing against Ethan's, their silence so full it seemed to speak louder than any fireworks outside. You ever think? Lucas finally said, his voice barely above the hum of crickets, that maybe life only makes sense when you let yourself fall for the wrong person. Ethan chuckled, though it carried no humor. If that's true, then I've been making sense for months now. Lucas turned, studying the older man's profile under the thin wash of moonlight. Every line on Ethan's face told a story of patience, of discipline, of years spent teaching boys to reach their potential while never quite believing he deserved his own happiness. And now, here they were, caught between what was forbidden and what was inevitable. He wanted to kiss him, but he also wanted to protect him. He wanted to hold him, but he feared the consequences. Desire and morality clashed inside him like storms. Yet the look in Ethan's eyes said what his lips could not. I choose you, even if the world doesn't. The graduation day came with golden light and restless energy. Lucas walked across the stage, cap tilted, gown brushing his sneakers, scanning the crowd until he found Ethan standing discreetly at the back. Their eyes met only for a second, but it steadied Lucas more than any applause. Afterward, while everyone else rushed into embraces with family and friends, Lucas lingered by the kitchen door again, waiting. Ethan found him there, almost as though fate had placed them in the same spot where everything began. "Congratulations," Ethan murmured, sliding his hands into his pockets to resist the urge to touch. Lucas grinned. "Thanks. Couldn't have done it without you." "Don't say that. You're the one who fought for yourself." "You fought too," Lucas whispered. Then, before doubt could steal his courage, he added, "I don't want to spend another day pretending I don't feel this. I don't care how complicated it gets." The silence stretched. Ethan's jaw tightened, his gaze falling to the ground. For a terrifying moment, Lucas thought he might walk away. But then Ethan lifted his hand slowly, deliberately, and brushed his thumb across Lucas's cheek. "No more pretending," Ethan said softly. "Not for me either." The summer that followed was a delicate balancing act. They kept their secret close, meeting in quiet kitchens and empty classrooms, in places where the world couldn't find them. Every touch was stolen, every kiss a rebellion against the rules that said they had no right. And yet, those months were the happiest Lucas had ever known. But happiness rarely lasts without testing. One evening, when Lucas returned home from work, his father was waiting on the porch, face dark with suspicion. "You've been spending a lot of time with your teacher," he said bluntly. Lucas froze. His pulse pounded in his ears. "Yeah, he's been helping me get ready for college applications." His father narrowed his eyes. "Just make sure that's all he's doing." Lucas forced a laugh, but inside he was shaking. He didn't know how much longer they could hide. Later, when he told Ethan about the encounter, the older man's face tightened with worry. "If anyone finds out now, could destroy everything. Your future. My job." Lucas grabbed his hand, holding it fiercely. "I don't care about the rules. Care about you. Isn't that worth fighting for?" Ethan looked at him for a long moment, then sighed. "You'll make me reckless, Lucas. Maybe that's not such a bad thing." As the months passed, they learned to navigate between fear and freedom. There were close calls: a friend knocking on the door too soon, a colleague noticing Ethan's distracted smiles, but each time they survived. Their bond grew stronger. And when Lucas finally left for college, the goodbye was not an ending but a promise. "I'll visit every weekend I can," Lucas said, gripping Ethan's hands like lifelines. "You'll have a new world waiting for you," Ethan replied. "Don't waste it all on me." Lucas smiled, eyes fierce with determination. "I'm not wasting anything. You're the best part of it." Years later, the kitchen still held their story. Lucas returned, older now, his laughter deeper, his confidence brighter. Ethan was waiting there, apron dusted with flour, the same gentle steadiness in his eyes. "Still burning toast, I see," Ethan teased as Lucas pulled him into a hug. "Some things never change," Lucas replied, pressing his forehead against Ethan's. "But us, we did. And we made it." In the end, it wasn't the secrecy or the fear that defined them. It was the choice they made, over and over again, to reach for each other despite everything. Love had begun in the quiet of a kitchen, whispered in stolen glances and hidden touches. And it endured not because it was easy, but because it was real. Lucas once joked that the story of them would never make sense to anyone else. A teacher and a boy, drawn together by something neither could explain. But to them, it wasn't about logic. It was about survival, about finding light in the most unexpected corner of their lives. And as they stood side by side, years later, the world spinning on as if nothing had happened, Lucas leaned close and whispered, "You were never the wrong person. You were the only right thing I ever found." Ethan smiled, his hand warm around Lucas's. "And you're the reason I finally believed I deserved love." The kitchen was quiet again, but this time there was no fear, no secret waiting to be discovered. Just two men, older and wiser, holding onto the life they had fought so hard to build. And in that silence, love spoke louder than words ever could. Thank you for listening. If you find it interesting, please like and subscribe to follow the next stories.